Negative
Alright,
numbers
we are doing 3.5 multiplying positive and negative numbers. You guys remember some of the rules. If you have a positive times a positive, this equals a positive. If you have a negative multiplied by a positive, this equals a negative. If you have a positive times a negative, this equals a negative. And then if you have two negatives, a negative times a negative, that equals a positive.
So I actually have a rule here, which is when you multiply an even number of negatives, the answer is positive. Which is what we basically showed right here. So a negative times a negative is positive, and then another negative times a negative is a positive. I have four negatives, which is an even amount of negatives, and when I multiply them all together, I end up with a positive. When you multiply an odd number of negatives, the answer is negative. So if you think about this, I have negative 3 times negative 8 times negative 2 times negative 4 times negative 5, right? I now have 5 negatives. So these two negatives multiply to a positive, these two negatives multiply to a positive, but then I have this leftover negative. Okay, and if I multiply this all together, I will end up with a negative. So if I have an odd amount of negatives, it ends up negative. That is an important rule, so I'm going to box it.
Count it out. See how many negatives we have. 1, 2, 3. This is not a negative. 4 negatives. 4 negatives, odd or even? Even. So is it positive or negative? Positive. Very good. Okay. Now let's actually multiply and see if that's actually true. It's all multiplication, so I can use the commutative property and multiply out of order. But I know negative 8 times negative 2 pretty easy. That is 16, so I'm going to start there. I don't really actually want to deal with the decimal yet, so I'm just going to bring that down, times negative 0.1. And what is positive 3 times negative 4? Negative 12, very good. All right. And let's see. I'm going to do the negative 1/10 times negative 12. Negative times a negative is a positive. And then 1/10 times 12 is 1.2. And so 16 times 1.2 is 19.2. How did I multiply that? Well, I'm magical. I already have the answer. Okay. Here's some other really important examples I want to do with you. What if we have negative 8 to the third power? What negative 8 to the third power means is negative 8 times negative 8 times negative 8. I don't really feel like solving, but can you guys tell me, is the answer to this going to be positive or negative? Class? Negative. Great, the answer is negative. Because we have 3 negative signs, so 2 will make a positive, and then we'll have a leftover negative. Let's try negative 3 to the fourth power. This is equal to negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So I have 4 negatives. That is even, so the answer will be positive or negative? Positive. Positive. Are you sure?
Yes.
Yes? Are you?
Yeah.
Positive. Very good. You can again multiply out of order. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 9 is 81. So that's a quick way of figuring that out. What if I do negative 3 to the fourth? Now some of you guys are going, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You just did negative 3 to the fourth. No, this is totally different. What we're going to do here is this is like a negative 1 times 3 to the fourth power. There's like a secret agent number 1 in front. This is a negative and then 3 to the fourth power. The only thing that is being raised to the fourth power in this problem is the 3, whereas in this one it was the negative 3. So what this is going to equal when you write it in expanded form is negative 1 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So I actually only have one negative. So this answer is going to be a negative 81. because that's kind of a confusing concept, we are going to have a versus. So negative 5 squared versus negative 5 squared. This one is negative 5 squared, whereas this is negative 5 squared. So when I expand this, it becomes negative 5 times negative 5, and a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 5 is 25. Good. This negative 5 squared is going to be a negative, and then 5 times 5. So this is a negative 25. Pretty important concept. Let's box that also. What would you like to do first? Hannah.
Parentheses.
So solve inside the parentheses?
Yeah.
3 plus 8?
11.
So we can do that. So we definitely would want to do that first. Now, what would be another option you could have possibly done instead of done the 3 plus 8 first? Yeah, Jake.
Could you have distributed the x times 3 and x times 8?
Yeah. Now here's the thing. If you distribute first, it is not an x that you are distributing. Negative x. Because you're subtracting x times all this, you would need to do negative x times 3 and negative x times 8. So if you distribute first, be sure you distribute a
negative x. Okay?
So you have 2x plus 17. Instead of writing x11, I'm going to write it 11x. Is there anything I can simplify, combine?
2x and negative 11x.
Yes! All right, so this is a 2x and this is a negative 11x. If you don't like calling that a negative 11x and you'd rather say it's because you're adding a negative 11x, that's fine with me. What's 2x and negative 11x? Class? Negative 9x, yeah. A 2 and a negative 11 is negative 9. And I still have a plus 17. I cannot combine those. There is my answer. We have 4 and y in this parentheses. Can I add 4 and y? No. Therefore, I need to distribute. Whisper to your neighbor what I am going to distribute. If your neighbor said negative 2y, give them a high five. Okay, once again, if you're confused on why it is a negative 2y, you can change this minus 2y into adding a negative 2y if that is more visually appealing for you. And it's this negative 2y that you are distributing to the 4 and to the y. So, what is negative 2y times 4? Negative 8y. Okay? Now I'm going to give you a quick reminder. Y times y is y squared. Just like 5 times 5 is 5 squared, y times y is y squared. So, negative 2y times y.
Negative 2y squared.
Perfect. There we go. Anything else we can combine? So I have negative 3y. I also have a positive 12, and I also have a negative 2y squared. We are mathematicians. Is this the way I should leave this answer?
No!
Good. Put the highest exponents first. Fantastic mathematicians. Yes, Michael.
Is it negative 3y?
It is a negative 3y.
But you don't write negative?
I wrote... Okay, so I can write it as minus 3y, because minus 3y is the same as adding a negative 3y. Mathematician's favorite joke is, can you find n?
No. It's right there.
It's right there! You got it! There's n, I found it.
Alright, we are going to simplify. Negative 7 times n is negative 7n, and 14 times 2 is 28. Some of you guys can do guess and check, but to practice our steps, I could get n by itself. I have times negative 7, so the inverse is divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7. I will simplify that out, and n will equal negative 4, because 28 divided by negative 7 is negative 4, because you have the same rules for multiplying and dividing with negative numbers.